Thank you so much, Caroline. It's great to be here with you. I Great to be here with all of you, by the way. I am coming to you today from California. I am in the midst of managing what will soon be nearly a cross country move, but it's great to meet all of you. I run a media studio called Realitycraft, which I started during the pandemic as a way to bring together my love of world building and design and concept development with this immersion space in AI and XR. So I've been in XR for 20 years in various forms. It started by jumping in to be a part of the Metaverse Roadmap in 2005 and being a virtual worlds creator, going back to the early Second Life days with nonprofit communities, with government, doing that work for State Department and the White House, and really figuring out how to unlock the capacities of virtual spaces like the one we're in here to do this kind of mixed reality event. So I've been a creator and producer for these kinds of events now for 20 years and have worked with people all over the world to figure out how are we going to bring together the president and the diplomat and the community to have a conversation and work together on something meaningful. So, all of that is to say, I love helping to unlock challenges using the immersive, the interactive, and the procedural, the generative. Everything that we think of now as AI includes all of the amazing data work that you've seen from our other speakers today. It also includes the work that many of you are doing in AR, VR, XR development, whether that relates to computer vision and pass through, that might be sensors and haptics. Obviously, there's so many different use cases of these technologies. I tend to do the strategy work and the early stage development, and then I am also a producer. So I wrote a book called Prompt Craft. That would have been 2 years ago now. I'm working on the second edition, as well as an update to a book called Reality Craft. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but all you need to know for now is that I help people guide the inquiry process. So I've been doing that particular work for about 10 years since doing my graduate work at Singularity University and forming an ed tech company that was really thinking about how do we unlock AI in media to help guide our lifelong learning journeys and to guide our lives in a way that helps us be more effective, but also to be more good at being human, to be good at connecting, creative, not replacing our critical thinking or our creativity, but augmenting it in the best possible ways. So, next slide, really quick. You can go and see my work at evo.ist. I just had a film picked up for a festival last weekend. I just got a green light today on a new series that I'm developing using generative media for a multiverse animation series that'll be on television. So, it's really a great time to be exploring the edges of these spaces. I've been doing AI R&D in various forms for 20 years. It is what first drove me to want to come into immersive spaces because I needed a place to figure out. I needed a lab. I needed an experimentation zone. And today we have places like Frame to come and experiment. We have obviously the great work that Doug's doing in technology and specifically in teaching people how to use our tools effectively in these spaces. We have a number of trends that we're tracking, right? So, if you're thinking about training, that is one of the biggest trends we're tracking in XR and AI integration right now, because so much of what we're unlocking in XR is the ability to learn faster and to use our learnings, our discoveries, our data in order to inform and improve. So that is where iterative feedback loops very quickly build something that can be useful for any form of education at all. Um, Inquiry based development, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I guide a process that's sort of unlocked within the reality craft framework. And it's really designed to help teams ask questions together. It doesn't matter if you're a PBS producer working on a documentary and trying to figure out if it's okay to use AI for historical simulations and recreations, or if you're trying to figure out if it's okay to use an LLM if you're facing the public in a way that it might be iffy or feel maybe unethical. So I do help teams figure out whether that is going to be appropriate and then to build a process where they can work with the public or with their team to do that together. So, um, I think some of you got to see my colleague at XR Guild last week, Avi Barsev, last month. And you're welcome to plug in if ethics and safety, all of the work that we're trying to unlock for developers and figuring out how to do this work transparently and appropriately. Um, you can check us out at xrguild.org. Next slide. So, as I mentioned, I have a framework that I use in my consulting work. It is designed to maximize what we do in AI as part of our XR stack and to use the right tool at the right time in the right workflow. Understanding that you often have many tools to choose from. Not every tool is going to be right for every audience or every use case. And so, some of that work is asking the right questions about what you're trying to achieve, how you want to get there, what are the appropriate consent elements that you need to unlock with your community, and how do you want to talk about it together. So that's a bit of a dynamic interplay. I tend to do that in workshops and other types of interactive sessions. Both as a consultant and as a producer, it's a conversation and it's something that is unlocked over time. So I do a lot of generative media production, building skyboxes, building 3D assets, building videos. It can take sometimes 1,000 assets to get to one finished product. And so this sense of um, helping to understand the process that you are undergoing together, it's not automatic. Even if you're automating some piece of a workflow, it's not the same as being fully automatic. And that's really important to understand where humans need to stay in the loop and where human insight is really important. So I tend to double down on human insight as a part of a generative process. Not every AI developer is going to approach it the same way, but that's how I approach things. I teach prompt craft as part of my work. And so it's how to develop the right prompts and the right language, understanding how these tools work with our language, what we're asking for to produce something together. Next slide, real quick. And I'm gonna let you see a little video, later on, but we can hold that till the end. But this kind of work, whether you're thinking of generative creativity and like images and videos or world building, it's really for everyone. I work with people as young as 9, 10, 11, 12. Obviously, once you've been in a game and you have an idea, you have a sense of how these things might need to start coming together. So this is really something that everyone can do. Almost anyone can come into frame, build a world, start to figure out how to use an AI assistant in that world, and really experiment, whether they're trying to figure out how to unlock something in education or in research or in some other arena, right? Therapy, medical, wellness, you name it. So I tend to work with folks and figure out how to design the interaction and design the capacities, whether you're thinking about information architecture, uh, how are you going to deal with your metadata? How are you going to deal with portability? What Caroline was talking about earlier with our portal crawls, this is something we've worked on quite a bit over the last 4 years so that we can walk from one world to the next. And that interoperability means the same thing somewhat, whether you're in frame or a different platform. So, building that sense of cohesiveness for something that feels like a real metaverse instead of a bunch of sort of software things that are kludged together. Um, that to me is the future of the public commons. And that's the space that I want to make sure is safe and appropriate and awesome for everyone. So, figuring out how we work together to create that is why I come to hang out with people like you. So, I think we're just about wrapped. You can go to the next slide if you need to, but I think at this point, I want to bring us into conversation. And I like to be someone who is both human and inquisitive and inviting play. So I want to encourage all of you to think about whatever you're trying to achieve, whether it's experiments in AI or bringing these tools into your stack and in your workflow. Really be inquisitive and think about how you can ask these questions playfully together. So, from simulations in smart cities to let's go make games that heal people. Let's have a great conversation.
That's fabulous, Evo. Before we open it up to the larger set of questions, I want to ask about what I was thinking about as you were describing your process was iterative. And one of the things that I've found in the technology space is that it really is very iterative, whether it's agile, team building, or other things. Can you share a little bit about how do you translate that into the work you're doing in prompt craft, and
Sure,
how
and
do you
actually there was
consider that?
one more slide there, and I will you can go ahead
Oh,
and put the
sure.
last
Oh,
slide up
sorry
for me
about
if
that.
that's okay. That's okay. It's the one that I think they just passed there. Um, when I think of these iterative feedback loops, it starts with asking a question, perhaps coming into dialogue or running an experiment, and then coming back and seeing, did it work? Do we want to improve? Do we want to try something different? Like in the generative space, that's often a re-roll. Like, let's try and generate again until we see something we like
Yeah. Yeah.
in image generation. So I tend to think of it as lots of loops that you're making together, almost like a square dance or some sort of like choreographed dance. And the work itself is almost like jazz, you know, you're improvisational, you're kind of flowing with it, and you're like, hey, what happens if we add this word or this thing? And how do we have this effect on each other that creates a style or a tone or an energy that's unique, right? Because that's what I'm often looking for, is something that doesn't feel like anything I've ever seen before.
Wow, that must be a powerful process. And I guess, since we're talking about the integration tonight of AI and XR, can you share a little bit about where you're seeing the, not really the wins, but what are the peaks that we need to surpass in order to make that a more integrated process, in the building, in the collaborating, in the creation of things? Are there some hurdles that you think are really are your next sort of big things that we need to tackle?
Certainly public access to tools that are robust enough to develop a plan together. And some of that is having these tools at point in libraries as well as in your co-working spaces. And so having public design labs in places where the public can work together, not just on your mobile phone, but also perhaps coming together in public spaces too. I, for example, like to mix Gaussian splats or scans that I would take on my phone with generative media. Currently, that requires a big NVIDIA kind of big old desktop to run. Over the next year or two, we're going to start seeing that happening on our mobile phones. That's going to change everything when it comes to disaster response and housing and being able to rebuild quickly after someone has lost their home, for example. So this is where I'm excited to see the technologies come together into useful public applications for the consumers as well as for enterprise level experiences.